Hi grade 11s. Today we are doing question 4 from this question paper and we will be doing the trigonometry for 29 marks. So question 4.1 says, if 7 tan theta is equal to 3. So let's highlight that. And they say that cos is less than 0. So cos theta is a negative. Then the instruction is use a sketch, okay, in the correct quadrant. So we have to choose the correct quadrant. And we have to determine the value of this expression without using a calculator. Let's do our plan. Our plan is grade 11s. We first write the given information down. So this one is given. So this is given. And this is given. Okay? So these two restrictions are given. So that's the restrictions. 7 tan theta is equal to 3. This was given. So what do I do with this equation? I isolate tan. I make sure tan is by itself. So I'm going to say tan theta is equal to 3 over 7. Then I'm going to use information number 2. So this was information number 1. Information number 2 is my restriction. Cos theta is less than 0. What does that mean? It means I must choose a quadrant where cos is a negative. Okay, so wherever the angle is, cos will be a negative, So I'm going to use this information to choose my quadrant. Step number 1 is to choose a quadrant. That is step number 1, Step number 2 is to work out the missing side, And then step number 3 is to answer the question, okay? So can you see I don't look at the question? For number 1 and 2, I only use this information over here. Okay, let's choose the correct quadrant. So based on number 1, so based on this, tan is a positive. So you see this fraction over here? That's a positive fraction, I'm going to look where is tan a positive. And then I'm going to look for where is cos a negative. Do you remember all functions are positive? Only sine is positive, only tan is positive, only cos is positive. So let's do our first restriction. Where is tan a positive? So tan is a positive where it says all and where it says tan. Then where is cos a negative? Cos is a negative. Remember, not a positive, a negative. Cos is a negative where sine is positive and where tan is positive. That's where cos is a negative. Do you see that the quadrant with 2 ticks is quadrant number 3? So I'm going to choose quadrant number 3 to draw my diagram in. I'm going to draw my diagram in quadrant number 3, So I come from the center and then I draw my line out like this and then I go up. Now I've chosen the quadrant, so we've done this part, The next thing we must do is we must work out the missing side. To work out the missing side, I'm only going to use this equation over here. I'm only going to use information number 1 to work out the missing side. So I'm going to write information number 1 down again. Tan theta is 3 over 7. So I know tan is my opposite over my adjacent. Or I can say it is my y over my x. When you work out the missing side, it's either you are looking for the x, or you are looking for y, or you are looking for r. Do you see we have y and x there? So we are definitely looking for r. Okay, so that's how you find out what missing side you are looking for. So in quadrant number 3, you must remember the x-coordinate is a negative and the y-coordinate is also a negative in quadrant number 3. So if the y is 3 and the x is the 7, then the numbers here is going to be x is 7, y is 3, because you write your coordinates like that. But because I am in quadrant number 3, because I'm in this quadrant, x is a negative and y is a negative. Okay, so now I'm going to work out my missing side. So for my missing side, I'm going to say r squared is equal to x squared plus y squared. Okay, and this is Pythag. So r squared, my x is negative 7. So negative 7 squared plus my y is negative 3. So negative 3 squared, and I get my r squared to be 58. So if I take the square root on both sides, r is the square root of 58. You can just leave it like that. You can use your calculator, but because the question said we must do it without the use of a calculator, we don't write our answers as decimals, eh? So here's your x, here's your y, and now your r is the square root of 58. So far you've chosen the quadrant, you've worked out the missing side, and only now we are looking at the question. Now I'm going to write my question down. This is the question. Calculate the value of this expression. So I'm going to write that expression down. This is now the question, eh? We are going to answer this. The first thing I want us to do is sine theta as a fraction. Sine theta is my y over r. So can you see, grade 11? I'm not writing sine y over r. So after you've written down the question, in your next step, you are not writing these words down again, cos or tan, eh? So let's go. So sine theta is y over r plus cos theta is x over r over 2 times sine theta. Sine theta is y over r. And if you can't do that and you struggle with the x, y, and r, you can do sine theta is equal to opposite over hypotenuse plus cos theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. And that all over 2 times sine theta, which is opposite over hypotenuse. You can do that. Okay, let's draw the angle in here. So this is theta over here. Eh? You can choose any one of these. Eh? I'm going to stick to this one over here. Now, I'm going to replace my letters. Eh? So do you see? We have y, we have x, and we have r. This is my x. This is my y. And the square root of 58 is my r. So now I'm just going to replace it. I'm going to say y over r. Y is negative 3. R is the square root of 58. Plus x is negative 7. R is the square root of 58. And this is all over 2 times y over r. So I'm here. Y, then I go to my diagram. Y is negative 3. So negative 3 in here. And r is the square root of 58. Now, you can use your calculator. You must just remember, don't show any decimals, eh? So I would simplify the top part with my calculator. And then you would get negative 10 over the square root of 58. And then that is over. Then I would put this in the calculator. Here you would get negative 6 over root 58. All on the calculator. Don't write the answer as a decimal. Write your answers as roots or fractions or whole numbers. But just don't write your answers as a decimal. And so that's how you answer that question. So step number 1 was to choose the quadrant. Step number 2 was to work out the missing side. And step number 3 was to actually answer the question over here. Okay, let's mark. So if the child chooses the correct quadrant, so the child has quadrant 3, that is a mark. If the child isolates this tan theta by itself, that's a mark. Then, for working out the missing side over here, that's a mark. And can you see, grade 11s? You haven't even answered the question, and you already have 3 out of 6. Okay, so now, for substitution, this is a mark. Then for showing how you simplify, that's a mark. And for the answer, that's a mark. And that's how you would get 6 marks. Our next question is 4.2. And this one says, if sine 32 is equal to p, so that's given, express the following in terms of p. So normally they can change this letter. Eh? They can say if sine 32 is equal to k, or is equal to m, or is equal to q. It can be any letter. In this case, they chose p. The first thing I would do is I would do a triangle. So this question over here, where the angle is always an acute angle, do you see 32 is less than 90? So that angle is always in quadrant 1. 32 must be here in quadrant 1. So let's make that 32. And then I would say sine 32 is p. Let's write P as a fraction. P can be written as P over 1. And I know the sine of an angle is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So if I had to stand here by 32, the opposite would be this side over here. That's opposite. And this is hypotenuse. So I'm going to fill that in now. So do you see there's a missing side again? Let's work out this missing side, eh? So that missing side is x. So I'm going to say x squared is equal to the radius minus the y, Pythag. So x squared is equal to 1 because that's the radius, and p, that's the y. So x squared is 1 times 1 is 1, p times p is p squared, and then I take the square root of this. So x is, this stays the square root of 1 minus p squared. It doesn't become 1 minus p grade 11s. It stays under the root. Okay, then I go to my diagram and I make this missing side. I make that the square root of 1 minus p squared. Okay, then one last thing before I start. This is a right angle triangle. That triangle over there. So if this is 32 and this is 90, then can't we work out this angle using angles in a triangle? So if you had to work this out, you would get 58. So I'm going to put my 58 in there. Okay? So my triangle looks like this. Now let's start with the question. 4.2.1 says, express tan negative 32 in terms of p. So my first question, is there a negative 32 in this triangle? No, there isn't. There's only a positive 32. So I have to reduce this angle. So to reduce a negative angle, there's so many ways to do it. So I'm going to show you. To reduce a negative angle, you can always just put 360 in front. So put the 360 here and say minus 32. So you just put the 360 in front of this angle. Then you say, oh, but then this is tan of 32. It's this and this. But now, here in front must be a plus or there must be a minus. So I have to figure that out. So now I go, this 360 minus something is in what quadrant? That is in quadrant number 4. And in quadrant number 4, tan is a negative. So there I have the sign in front. So now I ask myself again, is there a 32 in the diagram? Yes, there is. And I go stand here by 32. And I say, oh, tan is opposite over adjacent. So now I go replace the word tan now, eh? I replace it with opposite over adjacent. But then I remember there was a negative in front because I reduced and I put the negative in front. And that's the answer to question number 1. So that is for 3 marks because you had to use the triangle. Okay, the next question is, what is the value of sine 418 in terms of p? So again, I'm going to ask myself, is there a 418 degrees in this triangle? Of course not. It's too big. So I have to reduce this, eh? So I'm going to write this as sine 360 plus 58 degrees. So remember, when you reduce this answer, so if I work this out, it must give me this, okay? So I know when I reduce, it's this and this. So those two will be my answer. I just don't know, is it a positive or is it a negative? So I have to figure that out. So 360 plus an angle, if you go to your Cartesian plane, 360 plus an angle is in quadrant 1. And in quadrant 1, all my functions are a positive. So this is a positive sine 58. So now I ask myself, after I've reduced, is there 58 in my triangle? I'm going to stand by 58. If you're standing here, then this is the opposite. And this is the hypotenuse. So my final answer here, it is a positive opposite. Can you see in terms of p over 1? You can leave it like that, or you can just write your answer like that. And that's for 2 marks.